Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you've been learning English for a while, you know one truth. English can be incredibly confusing. There are so many words that my students mix up and get wrong, like affect with an A and effect with an E, or complementary with an I and complementary with an E. Today, I'm going to teach you the 60 most confusing words in English. I'm going to clarify them for you, and you're going to understand them so well that you don't even have to think anymore. It's a huge lesson, but when you get to the end of it, I promise you will feel so much more confident when speaking English. We're going to go through 24 verbs, 12 nouns, 12 adjectives, and 12 phrasal verbs. I'm going to explain them clearly with plenty of examples, and I'll even test you with a few little quizzes. By the end of this lesson, you will know exactly when to say go and exactly when to say get. You'll know what it means to be uninterested versus disinterested. And you will know why shade and shadow are not the same thing. Now, to make this even easier for you, I have created a beautiful ebook with the 60 most confusing words in English. It contains everything from this lesson, plus extra information. Download it now and keep it in case you need a refresher. To get it for free, just click on the link in the description box or scan the QR code there, enter your name and your email address, and choose your English level. Then you've signed up to my mailing list and the ebook will arrive directly in your inbox. Okay, let's get started with the lesson. 12 confusing nouns. Pair 1. Floor versus ground. Let's clear any confusion once and for all. The floor refers to the flat surface of a room that people can stand on or walk on, usually inside. For example, we sat on the floor in the living room and ate pizza. The ground refers to the surface of the earth outside, soil, concrete, grass, etc. For example, we sat on the ground under a tree and had a picnic. Floor also refers to the levels of a building, first floor, second floor, for example. And here's where it gets confusing. In British English, we use the term ground floor for the floor at the same level as the earth outside. My office is on the ground floor. Notice that I use the preposition on, not in. Note that the ground floor is called the first floor in North American English. Another point of confusion. Also, while the floor is generally inside, we also use floor to refer to the surface of the earth in a forest, ocean, or cave, for example. The forest floor was covered in moss. The floor of the cave was wet and slippery. Sometimes we will use ground and floor interchangeably. My ice cream fell on the floor. My ice cream fell on the ground. What I've just explained should give you a general indication. Pair 2. Journey versus trip, and travel. These are words that my students mix up all the time. Let's start with travel. As a noun, travel refers to the general activity of traveling, going to a different place. It's often uncountable, so we don't use a or the. For example, people say that travel broadens the mind. It can also be used in the plural to imply a variety of places and experiences. For example, Lois was telling me about her travels in Italy. We can't say her travel in the singular here. You'll also hear travel used in many compound nouns like travel insurance or travel sickness. Let's move on to journey. We use journey to focus on the act of moving from one place to another, often over longer distances. For example, the journey to Paris will take about 3 hours. For example, how was your journey? Meaning, how was your drive, train ride? A trip is when you go somewhere and then return, usually staying for a short amount of time. For example, I've just been on a trip to Rome. We can often talk about going on a day trip, a business trip, a camping trip, or a shopping trip. For example, Tim's away on a business trip. To sum up, travel is the general activity or experience. Journey is the act of getting from A to B, and trip is the visit somewhere. One final example with all three. Travel is my passion. I recently went on a trip to Edinburgh, and the train journey from London took 4 hours. Here's some homework. See if you can write a sentence like that with all three words in the comments. Pair 3. Opportunity versus possibility. An opportunity is a situation that allows you to do something you want. It tends to be positive. We often say you have the opportunity to do something. For example, when I was at uni, I had the opportunity to spend a semester in Spain. For example, the internship was a wonderful opportunity for me. A possibility is something that might happen or might be true. For example, have you considered the possibility that it might rain tomorrow? For example, there's a strong possibility that the plan might fail. Here's an example with both words. There's a possibility that my company will expand next year, and if it does, I might have the opportunity to move abroad. We also use possibility to talk about the different options available to us. What kind of food do you want? The possibilities are endless. Pair 4. Receipt versus recipe. Our next pair of confusing words. I want you to think about how you would pronounce them. We have receipt and recipe. Let's see if you can put the right word in these sentences. I wanted to bake a cake, so I asked my mom for a. I bought a cake from the shop, and after I paid, I got a. In the first gap, we have recipe, and of course, in the second, receipt. Now let's talk pronunciation. Receipt has 2 syllables. We stress the second one. The P is silent. Ignore the P. Receipt. It's a piece of paper or an electronic document that shows you have paid for something. For example, I'd like to return this, but I've lost my receipt. Recipe, on the other hand, has 3 syllables. Recipe. We stress the first one, and the second is a schwa sound. Recipe. It's a list of ingredients and instructions telling you how to cook something. For example, have you got a good recipe for shepherd's pie? Pair 5. History versus story. History is uncountable. It's a description or study of facts or real events that happened in the past. Notice that we either don't pronounce the O in history, or we pronounce it as a schwa. History or history. I prefer the 2-syllable version. It's more efficient. For example, I'm really interested in the history of France. For example, the invention of electricity was a turning point in human history. Story is a countable noun. A story is a description of events that can be real or imagined, often told to entertain people or share experiences. It's pronounced with a long O sound. Story. For example, my dad used to tell me bedtime stories about dragons and princesses. Here's an example with the words together. I always thought the story of King Arthur was just a myth, but it turns out some parts might actually be rooted in history.